In eastern Ukraine, there was deadly shelling between Russian-backed rebels and government troops. ABC's Ian Pannell is in Kyiv with more on what now seems to be, Ian, inevitable.
Yes, that's certainly the view of the U.S. administration. Interestingly, there is an organization called the OSCE that monitors the number of attacks. It has seen in the last 24 hours a five-fold increase in the number of shellings, the number of breaches of the ceasefire that's supposed to be in place on this eastern part of Ukraine over the last 24 hours. This as more efforts are underway to try and restore some sense of a diplomatic solution.
This morning, renewed tensions in Ukraine amidst new unsubstantiated claims by Russian-backed rebels that they've been attacked by Ukrainian paratroopers. The US fears these claims could be used to justify a Russian invasion to protect the Russian-speaking population in the east of the country. This as President Biden's set to meet with the National Security Council later today to discuss the deteriorating situation. Vice President Harris speaking in Germany this morning.
We are talking about the real possibility of war in Europe. It is in the best interest of all that there is a diplomatic end to this moment.
The US now believes that Putin has made a decision to attack and that it can come any day. Russia holding massive military drills in Belarus this weekend involving jets, helicopters, tanks and paratroopers. And test firing this nuclear-capable ballistic missile. Russian President Vladimir Putin overseeing the drill next to Belarusian President Lukashenko. US officials believe up to 50% of Russian forces gathered around Ukraine's borders are now in attack position. They're estimated to be 150,000 Russian troops amassed. While Russia continues to deny plans to attack, accusing America and others of hysteria, in eastern Ukraine today, more shelling on the front lines between Russian-backed rebels and government troops, on Saturday claiming the lives of 2 Ukrainian soldiers. Ukrainian lawmakers visiting the area forced to shelter. As the world awaits Putin's next move, America and NATO say Russia is poised to invade.
In the past, most military actions started at night. But now, with social media, with commercial satellites, much of the surprise of maneuver is taken away. So in this case, the Russians' real advantage is in the use of drones. So daylight and good weather are much more important than night and surprise.
Well, if that is the mood in the east of the country, one of tension, one of people being forced to evacuate from the area, people being mobilized, the mood here in Kiev is totally different. It's a warm, almost spring-like day, people out on the streets. But everyone's focused on what's happening, and the diplomatic channels are still active. President Putin speaking with President Macron of France in the last hour or so. There is some hope that perhaps that can be revived, but the question is, what does Vladimir Putin really want, and is he willing to make concessions? Whit?
Still hope for diplomacy there, Ian. Thank you. And coming up on This Week, our chief foreign affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz, has an exclusive interview with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. Here's part of that conversation.
So really focus, if you will, on why this battle, a conventional war really, would be so different and so harmful, and how much it would change the world.
You know, we see a lot of tanks and armored vehicles there. We see a lot of artillery. We see rocket forces. If he employs that kind of combat power, it will certainly create enormous casualties, within the civilian population. And so this could create a tragedy, quite frankly, in terms of refugee flow and displaced people.
A major concern there. For more, let's bring in our ABC News political director, Rick Klein. Rick, good morning. It's always great to have you. So the Biden administration has made clear that American troops will not be going to war in Ukraine. But if Russia invades, what role does the U.S. play in this conflict?
Yeah, Whit, it's interesting because we've seen the U.S. withdraw the small number of troops that we have in Ukraine, but we have doubled the number of troops that we have in nearby Poland and Romania. Those troops, we are told, will not have authorization to enter Ukraine or engage in any fighting. But if there is a refugee crisis, if people are leaving Ukraine, those troops will be able to help those countries, in addition to reassuring our allies in Eastern Europe against Russian aggression. But with the main role for the United States continues to be pushing the diplomatic path. We saw President Biden set something of a deadline for the Russians of around the middle of the week, saying this is when we have to come to the table. And if all else fails, then the lead role in imposing sanctions will fall to the United States. That will continue to impress the need for the world community to come together. So a lot of work ahead for the American side.
Yeah, this crisis could have global implications, that's for sure. Since we have you, I do want to turn to a different topic, though, because despite everything that's happening in Ukraine, President Biden insists he's going to make up his mind about a Supreme Court nominee by the end of this month. That's just over a week away. Where does that process stand now?
I'm told there's no change to the timeline, despite world events that are intruding on the president's time. He is continuing to talk to his advisors. We're told he is going to meet with some of the finalists and have a decision by the end of the month in time for his State of the Union address coming up on March 1st. In the meantime, the White House is putting in place the lobbying team that's going to work Capitol Hill. President Biden himself has been talking to Republican senators to try to bring support, and I've been talking to Democratic strategists who just really want to see a name. They'd like to rather talk about an individual rather than just the possibility of someone. So all of this is going to move pretty quickly in the week ahead.
As you noted, the president hoping for that bipartisan support as well, if you can get it. Rick, thank you as always. Of course, tune into a special edition of This Week later on this morning. As we noted, Martha Raddatz is on the ground anchoring from Ukraine, plus much more from her exclusive interview with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin.